Welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Welcome in. You might be saying to yourself, Russ, you look very well adjusted. Thank you. I was at the chiropractor this morning. You might be saying to yourself, Russ, have you had a lot of coffee? I have not. I've had no coffee. I've had a lot of meetings, but I've had no coffee. And then I thought to myself, I like to have a cup of coffee in the morning, but a lot of times I also like to have a morning cup of hockey. And so I said, you know what? Who better to bring on the show today to talk about your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers? Quinn Hughes, Matvei Michkov, maybe a little bit of both, maybe an Owen Tippett or two. Let's bring on Colby Cohen. Colby, how are you?
Nobody does an intro quite like you do. I think I've lost count of the amount of times I've come on and done stuff with you for the last, probably 8 years now since you started, having me on Snow the Goalie with you and Ant. But nobody does an intro like you, my friend. I'm always laughing off camera before you pop me onto the stream. So always good to be with you.
You're just saying that because it's true. Stop. Listen, there was a thing that was going around Twitter yesterday, and sometimes you and I will go back and forth because we'll see something that is just so absolutely unhinged and insane that it's like we have to have a conversation about it. And sometimes it's through text, and then sometimes it's on a show. And listen, as things stand right now, we can get into the Flyers and like where they've been this season and where they could be going and all that. But the thing I actually want to talk to you about first is this. I threw an idea out, okay? Like not trying to cause problems. I'm not trying to cause mass panic in the streets. I promise I'm not. I merely asked to the people on Twitter on Thursday, would you trade Matvei Michkov for Quinn Hughes? Like that's all. It was a genuinely innocent question. I wasn't trying to burn the boats. I was just asking a question. And it is a tweet that we're up to like 1,500 votes, which is significantly more than I usually get on a poll like that. I'm going to bring it up here on the screen, and then Colby and I, we have to have a conversation about it. But it was just simple. I didn't add any qualifiers. I didn't say, hey, Quinn Hughes would have to sign an extension. I didn't say anything like that. It was just simply, would you trade Matvei Michkov for Quinn Hughes? And I want people to just see and get an idea of where the public as a whole decided to go with this. So here we go. This is the tweet. And as of right now, so as of 11:16 a.m. on Friday, December 5th, the year of our Lord 2025, 82.6% of respondents say, no, I would not trade Matvei Michkov for Quinn Hughes. Now, I have a theory why that percentage is so high. But I want to just go to your knee-jerk reaction, Colby. When you saw that tweet and you saw the results of the poll, what was your initial reaction to nearly 83% of respondents saying, nah, I would not trade Matvei Michkov for Quinn Hughes?
Well, I did vote in your poll.
Thank you. I appreciate the engagement and the click. Thank you.
I did. And part of the reason I voted in your poll is I really did want to see the results because I had a feeling it could be like that. I am one of the 17%, I believe it was, that voted yes, especially 1 for 1. Like I would do that without a second thought. And it's really not even because of Matvei Michkov. It has nothing to do with him. It has to do with the other guy, the 27-minute-a-night guy who scores a point a game and can control an entire game in the NHL with his feet, with his poise, with his ability, not to mention Quinn Hughes is a good defender. I don't think people, and I know there was a clip going around the other day. That was an atrocious looking clip, by the way. I mean, somebody tweeted at me and was like, what'd you think of this? I mean, it was terrible. The clip against, I think he was playing, maybe it was against Colorado. I mean, not pretty, but again, he's a captain. Okay. He's going to go be probably, or have to be the star of the U.S. Olympic team's back end if they're going to win. Remember everybody was talking about how if the U.S. had him at the Four Nations, they would have had a better chance against Canada, whether that's true or not, who knows? But Russ, I'm a guy who wants to build his team around the back end. And I also am someone who believes that franchise-altering superstars are never available. Matthew Tkachuk was the last one. Matthew Tkachuk fetched a 115-point player in Huberdeau in return. Weegar, who arguably would be a top-pair defenseman, not a number one, but a number 1B.
Like a top pair.
A guy who can play on your top pair in big matchups. and they got a prospect and a draft pick in that trade. So like when I look at what you put out there and hypothetically saying you could trade a guy who very well may be a star player at some point in Matvei Michkov, like no doubt about that, very well may be a star player. You have an opportunity to get Quinn Hughes in his prime at 26 years old, not 32, 26 years old, who is a guy who can be the best player in the NHL on every given night that he plays in a hockey game. And in a 1-for-1 scenario, I just have a hard time not at least having my ears perk up and thinking, all right, what are the opportunities to keep him long-term, right? Because I think everybody just assumes there is no opportunity. And I said this yesterday, and I said it to Andrew Raycroft. He was on our show when we were talking about this whole Quinn Hughes in New Jersey thing. Let me ask you this, Russ. If you're Luke Hughes and you just signed 8 years at $9.5 million, and right now you've got a split time on the first power play with Dougie Hamilton, who everybody knows is on his way out the door, are you really going to be happy as Luke Hughes now signing your certificate to be on the number 2 power play for your entire 8-year, $9.5 million a year contract?
I'm not thinking so now. I don't think you'd be very happy.
So, like, you're going to have 2D on the top unit of an NHL power play? Most likely not.
Probably not, no.
So what, you're going to have $20 million locked up in those 2 guys in Jersey, and one of them is going to be on PP number 2. Like, I don't know. That just seems like a situation that's a little bit more to manage than everybody thinks. Yes, I know they're brothers. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that would be the coolest thing any of us have ever, like, how cool.
Yeah, it would be neat. Sure. Yeah, like that. There's probably something cool about it. I've been making this case for a while over on Snow the Goalie, and I think on this show too, but like conceptually, could it be cool to play with your brothers? Yes. Does it feel like something that people have fan fictioned their way into trying to manifest a reality? It does. And at the same time, I don't see a scenario where it makes sense for all of them to play together. I don't necessarily see a place where New Jersey goes to a totally different level, even if they were to add Quinn Hughes. Like, I don't think it automatically like makes them a legitimate cup contender. And then you start to worry about the amount of money you have locked up in 3 guys. And you see, yes, the cap is going to go up, but like you kind of see what's happened like Toronto. When you put all of your money into just a few guys, you have depth issues. But the other thing is that like Philly's not far from New Jersey. And like you could theoretically want to be closer to your family and closer to your brothers. And like, yeah, your schedules aren't always going to align.
Just be on the East Coast.
But still be generally in the same area and be closer to family, be in the US instead of Canada, not have to make the cross-country flights. And there's still probably something nice about having that as an option. I actually don't think that the idea of Quinn Hughes to the Flyers is like a far-fetched dream. I think that the idea of like Connor McDavid becoming a Philadelphia Flyer is a far-fetched dream. Do I think that the Flyers really did think they were going to get a meeting with Connor McDavid next offseason when he hit free agency? I do. I think that they were very convinced that there was a high likelihood they'd be able to at least get a meeting and try to pitch him on being a Philadelphia Flyer. Or maybe Kaprizov, but definitely I think the simple fix to many of their issues would be Connor McDavid. Then again, whose team wouldn't he immediately quick fix, right? But like the Hughes thing to me isn't nonsense. Like there are reasons that it makes sense. Like he spoke effusively in his praise of Rick Tocchet as the coach and once Tocchet left. And like, I think it's important to kind of point out, Vancouver wanted Tocchet back. They didn't fire him.
No.
Right? He didn't leave on bad terms in terms of like them being ready to move on. Quinn Hughes seemed very upset, bummed out. I don't know if I'd say devastated, but very bummed out that Rick Tocchet left. All right, well, that guy's here. He's got a buddy in Trevor Zegras. Now, I don't know if Hughes runs with like the same group. Like we know that Zegras and Drysdale and York are all friends. I don't know if those two are also part of that group with Quinn Hughes or not. But like still, you have a good friend here. And you have the head coach that this guy liked playing for. And you are very close by to where your brothers play. Like, I don't think that's insane. Even if it were to become a free agent discussion in 2027, not 2026. I think people have also gotten that confused. 2027. I don't think it's totally out of the realm of possibility that Hughes could decide to sign here or give it strong consideration. Have I said anything that's like wildly out of line?
No. And you know, remember something here. With a guy like McDavid, he's a Canadian player, right? There's no tie to the Broad Street Bully days, to the Ed Snyder days. Like, you don't, you know, he's a young guy, McDavid. He doesn't know anything about the history of the Flyers and, you know, what has made the orange and black a free agent destination. Like when I was growing up and they got every single free agent coming through town. But, you know, with Quinn Hughes, he has Jim Hughes as a father, comes from the old school, you know, NCAA. He played at Providence. He knows what, you know, being a Philadelphia Flyer means, especially in the 80s, the 90s. Ellen Hughes was a U.S. hockey player, understands sort of that old Flyers, you know, culture that used to attract all the players to come here and the loyalty that Ed Snyder used to show to players, sometimes to a fault. That can obviously be argued, no problem. But I always laughed at the Connor McDavid thing and was like, you have no upper hand. There's no reason Connor McDavid would be interested. If he wanted to come to a big Eastern market, this would not be the one, unfortunately. As much as I'd love to see the guy here, I live here. You know, we'll turn the Flyers on. I made a comment to someone on Twitter the other day, and I said, look, I am not rooting against Michkov. I am calling out what I see to be my opinions and my, you know, what I see when I watch this guy play. I hope he turns out to be the next reincarnation of Sergei Fedorov and Nikita Kucherov and every great Russian player who ever played. I want Danny Briere to succeed for personal reasons, okay? Like, I want that guy to be successful personally. Like, it's personal for me. But, like, it still doesn't change the fact that if I could have a superstar when's the last time the Flyers had that?
Chris Pronger.
It's like a franchise number one superstar, like that level player, like a top 5 player in the NHL, right? Not just for 1 or 2 seasons, for a while. I don't know. Like, to me, that's really, really interesting. And that seems close to being a reality just based on factors. And honestly, you get Quinn Hughes. I have heard rumblings, Russ, and people get all frustrated every time this comes up.
Rumbling alert! Rumblings.
The Flyers will be a team when the day comes that Brady Tkachuk has opportunities to go places. The Flyers will be a team that he will seriously look at, okay, when that day comes. And look, again, old school father, okay, who I know. He's a BU guy. We know my connection to BU, so make of it what you will, okay? My understanding is he spends a good amount of time somewhere on the Jersey Shore in the summer due to new family connections for him, okay? So, again, you get Quinn Hughes, now all of a sudden, do Brady Tkachuk's ears go up, right? Do the screws get a little tighter there? Do you start, now you attract the first guy, now the second domino falls there. So I just don't think it's crazy either. And I think Quinn Hughes is a guy that, if based on your poll, seeing how allergic to that 1-for-1 trade fans would be, like, it's unhinged, in my opinion, how protective everyone is of this guy.
Well, so like, I think it's kind of important to sort of unpack like both sides of it, right? From the offensive side and the defensive side, right? You ask kind of rhetorically, but like, when's the last time the Flyers had a true number 1 defenseman, superstar? It was Chris Pronger. So that was, 15 years ago. And that also wasn't young or entering his prime Chris Pronger. But yet he was still, by far, one of the best defensemen in the sport at that time. I still hate allowing myself to mentally play the what-if game if Pronger's career hadn't ended when it did. But we'll digress. That is the only number 1 defenseman they've had in a decade and a half. Now, there was a time where prior regimes tried to tell fans Ivan Provorov is the number 1, and he's not. He could maybe be a top pair guy, but he's certainly not a number 1.
He looks great with Zach Werenski right now. He is your perfect 1B. He is your perfect
and Werenski's
1B.
a hell of a defenseman too.
He's a true number 1.
But and that was the other thing too. Even with Provorov, like, he needed somebody to stabilize next to him. It happened to be Niskanen that
He
one
was great
season,
together with him, wasn't he?
So, but like they haven't had that number one. Quinn Hughes is number one. I mean, listen, the only other name that really has come up is like, could this guy be available maybe this year? Rasmus Dahlin. Like, I don't know where you're at on Dahlin. Like, I would say that would certainly represent a major upgrade for this team as well. Very different kind of defenseman. But like, the Flyers haven't had one in so freaking long that I think people underrate or undervalue how important they are. Now, the reason that I threw the Michkov thing out and why I think people get so protective is Michkov does feel like the first really, truly elite prospect they've had since like Giroux. I think it really is that far back. Like, no one, I don't think, ever really looked at Konechny and said, that's a superstar in the making. I don't think there was ever a time that, I mean, shit, like you could pretty much throw anybody that they have right now and say they were never considered to be a potential superstar. Not a single soul.
Real good player, but not superstar.
Like even a Couturier, when he made the league and he was playing at 18 and was like matched up against Crosby, you'd go, all right, like there's a really cool, unique player there, but you never saw like superstardom, right?
Right.
So like Michkov is kind of that guy. Now I do think that Porter Martone has the makings of being a potential franchise guy. I'm very excited by Porter Martone.
Yeah.
I'll pick your brain on that
with
a little
good
bit.
Reason,
like,
like you should.
But like to me, he looks like a bona fide stud. And so like if you're the Flyers fans, you're going, okay, we have Michkov, we have Martone. Those are the two untouchables. And we also have to remember this fan base feels very burned by what happened with Cutter Gauthier and the fact that he's tearing it up for Anaheim. So like
that's a tough
they're
one.
going to be additionally protective of Michkov. Now, I am not saying, for the record, I'm not saying that it would take Matvei Michkov to get Quinn Hughes right now. It might not. I have no clue. I'm not involved in the discussions. I'm sure that whatever Vancouver would want, Vancouver might be crazy enough right now to say, you would have to give us Michkov and Martone. Well, there's no world where that would ever happen.
No.
But what ends up happening a lot of times, right, is when a trade finally goes down, more often than not, the public generally feels slightly underwhelmed by the return. So I'm not saying that you could put together some bullshit package of here's a first round pick and Owen Tippett and does Jet Lachenko get it? Like, I don't think that's it. But I'm not sure to have to be Michkov. The thought exercise was simply in a 1-for-1 scenario. Are you willing to move off of this potential star wing to get that number one defenseman?
Yeah.
And as much as I conceptually hate it, I could also look at it and say, from this rebuild, you still do not have a clearly defined 1C, a clearly defined number one defenseman. And unless you're very, very high on Zavragan, you don't really have that franchise netminder right now. This move at least gets you that franchise number one defenseman. Now, clearly, the Flyers would want to have some kind of assurance, even though they can't legally do it. They would want to know that Quinn Hughes is committed to being here
totally.
And maybe that's the uber complication in all of it.
But it's funny, like Kevin Kurz and I were talking about this a little bit, and even he said, even with an extension, Michkov is still untouchable. And I just like I struggle with that whole thing. A, because you have Martone, like because you do have this other guy, and B, you know, the other thing I wanted to say, you look at even the Eichel trade, right? Alex Tuck, Peyton Krebs, first round pick, top 10 protected, conditional third, which became a second. That didn't work out. Again, Tuck's been a good player, but like it worked way better for the Jack Eichel side of that trade, right? Yep. And then you look at the Matthew Tkachuk trade, boy, that worked out. Everyone said, oh my God, fleece by Calgary. By Calgary. Remember? Oh, Bill Zito doesn't know what he's doing, you know, like all this stuff. So when you look at those two trades, it's why I think Quinn Hughes is going to be more expensive than those other two guys were. And that's why, again, the reason you all love Matvei Michkov so much and Porter Martone so much, and with good reason, mind you, it's the same reason the Vancouver Canucks are saying, if you want our franchise superstar, you're giving us someone who might become a franchise superstar. Like, we're taking a risk here. So you're going to have to put him on the table. There's a reason we don't see guys like Martones and these high end prospects, like these guys that have been drafted and then maybe had 1 year of college or 1 year of pro or whatever. They're like, teams would love these guys, Russ, but they're closer to being a sure thing than the guy you drafted in a hot month in the summer that still can't grow a mustache yet. Especially a mustache as good as yours, mind you.
There you go.
So
there you go. Butter me up. Thank you.
It's it is interesting though, and it's funny. Like I do laugh because with Michkov in particular, one of the things I think that makes me laugh is like last year the world was on fire about Tortorella and Michkov, and then Michkov comes out and says like, I really liked and appreciated my time with John Tortorella. I learned a lot from John Tortorella. And then you have the fans that are clamoring for more ice time, and Rick Tocchet doesn't know what he's doing, and he's the old Flyers boys coach now, and let's get rid of him. And Matvei Michkov comes out in the last 2 or 3 days and says, I screwed up my summer training. I did not put myself in a good situation to be a good player this year. I'm playing whatever. I'm going to really work my ass off during the break to get myself. And you can see he's starting to get himself back into a situation where, he has the gas in the tank.
More of an impact.
Just to win more puck battles and be good off the puck and move around a little bit more off the puck. So like, again, the fans say one thing, and then Michkov comes out and all but sides with the head coach in his usage, admitting, I wasn't in good enough shape because of what I did all summer, so there is something to it. And I've said this also, whether you like Rick Tocchet or you don't like him, you agree with him or disagree. I've seen you've disagreed with lineup decisions this year. I'll disagree with lineup decisions. We all will. But the one thing I'll come back to is Russ, before we got on the show today, what were you doing?
Work.
You had meetings, you were saying, right? Yeah. This morning for me, I was sitting there doing video, getting ready. We have a game tonight, my junior team, getting some power play video, doing some stuff with my kids, in and out, right?
Yep.
Rick Tocchet spends all day, every day coaching the Philadelphia Flyers 24 hours a day. Okay. So like, we may disagree with him, and that's all right. But we do have to sometimes say, all they do 24/7 is think about this team, this roster, making this team better, developing our players, improving here, There's a reason for everything they do. And if they're not giving Michkov the ice time that every person at home wants, there is a reason for it. We don't have to agree with it. We don't have to understand it, but there is a reason that they do what they do and they make these decisions.
When you make the case like that, it is compelling, and I mostly agree with you. And the flip side to it, however, is there are coaches that aren't good at their job. I'm not saying that's Tocchet. I'm just saying in general, right? Like there are people who live, breathe, sleep, eat their career and what they're doing. And ultimately, they don't get it done for a myriad of reasons. The Michkov minutes thing, I think, is largely just because of him not being in shape. I've actually heard conflicting information. They put that idea out there that there was an ankle injury in the offseason, and I've heard conflicting info about whether there actually was or that was just the team trying to run cover for Michkov just being out of shape. They were essentially trying to build in an excuse because they didn't want the fans, I guess, to come down too hard on him that he just didn't look right, and then start to have all those conversations about, is the guy actually committed to being a winner? Those comments that he's made in the last couple of days about, I think I'm going to stay in Voorhees over the summer and do my preparations here, that to me kind of gives you the insight into the mentality. Like, to me, there is a thing in Matvei Michkov's brain that makes him want to be elite, that makes him want to be a great.
Impressive comments.
And that's the kind of thing. I think he's 20 right now. I think he turns 21 in a couple months. That's not the thing that you usually get from a guy of that age. Typically. So like to me, are there concerns like with his speed, with his skating? Yes. Are there concerns with the conditioning? Yes. This, oddly enough, this Olympic break, if it happens,
I know
it's supposed to.
We're having Pete DeBoer on next week to talk about.
Are you?
Thing. Yeah, he's coming on our show next week on Thursday.
Have to tune into it. I mean, that's a total clusterfuck. But like, the point kind of stands here that like, in a weird way, this Olympic break might be the thing that levels the playing field again for Michkov, allows him to get himself as close to where he should be and to have a really strong finish to the season. And like, look, based on where they're at right now, based on the way they've played all season, they do look like they are very much going to be in the mix for a playoff spot. I've said all along, I kind of thought they'd be in that bubble-ish zone. They'll either just make it or they'll just miss it, but they're playing well. And Tocchet was not the hire that I wanted to see them make in the offseason. Like, to me, it wasn't a very inspired hire. It was kind of a rinse and repeat sort of Flyers move. But it's hard to argue the fact that, like, they are playing well for this guy. I don't agree with the decision to have, like, no Point Hathaway and, like, what the fuck's he doing, Delorier in the lineup every night, and have a guy like Nikita Grabenkin collecting cobwebs in the press box. However, injuries happen, and now Grabenkin's getting an opportunity, and we'll see if it was all worth it. We'll see if the coaching, the extra film, we'll see if it ends up working for him. The last thing I guess I wanted to kind of pick your brain on here, we mentioned Martone. I just kind of gave a little overview of where the Flyers have been at so far. What are your thoughts right now between where the team is at and knowing that they have a guy like Martone in the wings who the timing is going to be weird. If this does end up being a playoff team, Martone's Michigan State squad could very well win the national championship.
They should be there in Vegas, April 9th and 11th. They should be there for those 2 games.
And then you pretty much have no runway to, like, get him acclimated and integrated into the team. Although there have been some murmurs that the Flyers, while they won't root against Michigan State, they would probably like to have him here for a playoff run. When you look at where they're at right now, their trajectory, and then knowing they have that guy in the wings, where are you at on the Flyers now versus like a year ago?
Listen, I saw what Frank said on your show. I still believe the Flyers are unfortunately in this gray area of not good enough and not bad enough. I think, again, you have some exciting prospects in the wings. And, with Michkov, like, I agree with you. Like, I think he wants to be good. When you see those quotes out of a 20-year-old, that makes me think the light will go off in his head, like every other superstar that said, oh, if I want to win a cup, I actually remember when Ovi decided, okay, I'm done losing to Pittsburgh. And he changed his game away from the puck. He changed his shift lengths. He changed, his board battles. He changed all of it. He wasn't leaving the zone early. And then all of a sudden he's out on the ice protecting leads. Like, that I think will happen for Michkov eventually, because that stuff is stuff that you can change. There's stuff you can't teach. He can do the stuff you can't teach, right? So, that light will go off for Michkov, probably not this year, but it'll go off eventually within his development. Now you do have Martone, who I think could join your team and push a guy like Brink off the third line and play on your third line, because he does play a straight line game. He does play direct. He is a big, strong kid. Now, he's another guy, though, that his skating is not, there's power behind it, but is it quick? It's better than Michkov, in my opinion, but he's not a lightning fast winger, which, again, do you have to be lightning fast to play wing at a high level in the NHL? No, you don't. So I think the Flyers are still, they're trending upwards and not just rushing Bump into the lineup and letting him sort of continue to develop and, have good moments, grow confidence, but also fall on your face and it not be, the front page of the morning news every day. Like, I like that they're taking their time with him. So I think all that stuff is good, Russ, but I still think there hasn't been a team that's won a Stanley Cup since the 2008 Wings without a top 3 pick on their roster. And you're still missing. Look at what Connor Bedard is now doing in his 3rd year. I think Macklin Celebrini, we thought, was the closest thing to a sure thing that we've seen in a very long time, just because of his engine, his motor. And you're still missing a guy like that. You're still missing a true number 1 everywhere in your lineup. Maybe you don't get a forward, but then you need the D. Yeah. Maybe you don't get the D. Well, then you definitely need the forward.
I think it's fair, which is why I think that the conversation around the Quinn Hughes of it all, maybe it ends up being the conversation around a Dahlin. I think those are going to get louder. I fully expect, I'll give Danny Briere this. I say this all the time. In order for you to be a GM who finds that ultimate success and wins it all, you have to have a definitive big balls moment. You have to. There has to be that one moment where you just kind of lay it out on the table and you get it done, whatever that move is. Now, I think that decision for them to trade a couple of firsts in this past draft to move up and get Nesbitt, that could be a mini big balls move, because we'll see if Nesbitt ends up becoming what they want him to be. I think that there's a massive human being there that has a lot of high upside. We'll see if it ends up happening or not. But that's the kind of move that I go, all right, that's a more risk-averse GM doesn't make that move. So, okay, cool. I think that ultimately there's going to be a painful trade made at some point. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be Michkov, but I think that at some point Briere is going to have to kind of go by that adage of, a good trade kind of hurts for both teams. You're not going to be able to fleece the opposition the way that you might want to.
Not
the Zegras trade, oddly enough, feels like a fleece in a lot of ways. So maybe that was his
Cutter. So does the Cutter Drysdale trade. That's a fleece going back the other way. These things generally balance each other out.
Yeah. So we'll see what ends up happening. And the big thing is, if you were a Flyers fan who came into the year hoping that this team was going to go in a race to the bottom, it ain't happening. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to happen unless there are a ton of injuries. Now, the Forster injury hurts. It does hurt them in a lot of different ways, but I don't see them tanking down to the top 10 in this draft and then having an outside chance of getting that number 1 overall pick. So they'll have to get creative. Trades are going to have to be the way. That 2026 free agency class that looked so great a year ago is all gone. So we will see what happens.
Can I address K-Dub in the chat is asking if Nyes is a comparison to Martone. I do actually think that's a good comparison, because I did Nyes games when he was at Minnesota, and I've done Martone games at Michigan State. I think that's a very good comp, because Nyes is not the quickest player, but he makes up for it with the power in his skating, and he makes up for it because he plays inside the hash marks. His whole game revolves around being inside the hash marks. And when you do that, your body position, both offensively and defensively, is one step ahead. So you make up for that lack of quickness that a guy think about an elite winger like a Kucherov has, or something like that, where they have that extra little bit of quickness. Or I know Draisaitl does a little bit of both, but there's just an extra level of quickness for those guys. So with Martone, with Nyes, where they spend their time in the middle of the ice allows them, to get away with it and it not hinder them as far as it goes. So I do think at the college level, as far as freshman year seasons go, I don't know what the stats are comparable. I'm just telling you, from an eye situation of calling games for both of those players, I do see a little bit of that. And then the other thing, Russ, to address would just be look, I think that's a great point. There's going to be pain, because if you want a great player, the players that you're all thinking, hey, Tippett's underperforming for us, so we're gonna put him up on a silver platter, guys. They have all the same video that we have. They have all the same access to all the same information that we have. They don't want Tippett as a centerpiece either. If you're willing to just walk a guy out the door, just rethink that, because what I'm telling you is that means they don't want him either. Okay, that's the non-starter, in my opinion, surrounding these deals. And I'm not just saying Tippett, because sure, could he be a sweetener of hey, this guy's a 25 goal scorer? Sure. He will not be the centerpiece for any deal. I promise you that.
No, I mean, and listen, there have been those rumors kind of coming out of Vancouver that a guy like Sherwood might be available, which I think would be an absolutely insane thing for the Flyers to execute. But if that's the thing that's where Tippett's value is kind of at right now. And I'm not even sure that the Flyers would want to trade Tippett for Sherwood. So that gives you an idea of how he's being perceived right now as a player, Tippett. Yeah. Forster was in a very interesting spot before he got hurt.
Yeah.
And I do think that there are a lot of teams that look at him as he's more than a sweetener, but he's still not the focal point of that kind of trade. So
you could have maybe got him on a run and then sold high on him, because recency bias does always come into these things, Russ, as we both know. But it is a shame to see him get hurt. And look, I hope the Flyers can keep winning. And like good for Dan Vladar for what he's done this season. I mean, good for him. He really, he's also a monster. Like, I always feel pretty good about big goalies, although you guys are probably feeling burned about the Russian guy. I mean, he was as big as I've ever seen.
Fedotov was a lovely human being. I don't feel burned by Fedotov.
He stunk, though. I mean, I felt bad how bad he was for his size. That was hard to watch.
He looked stiff all the time, and that, especially with that big of a frame, that just can't be the case. He was a heck of a guy to kind of see in net, though.
Well, that's good, though. It sounds like you had good experiences with him. So I just
like the idea of the guy. And like, listen, he signs a contract with the Flyers, and then, one day a van shows up and you must serve a year of military experience.
Siberia.
I'm happy for the guy that he managed to make his way stateside and continue his career. So you can't get me to say a bad thing about
bucks. Good for him.
You can't get me to say a bad thing about Colby Cohen. Colby, let the people know where they can find you.
Morning Cup of Hockey. I see some of our friends from Morning Cup of Hockey that are here with you in the chat as well. So Monday through Thursday, live, 9 a.m., Daily Face-Off YouTube channel. We mentioned we'll have Pete DeBoer on next week. So we're going to – somebody who's seen the smaller ice surface out in Italy. Geez, Russ, someone should probably lose their job for that. That's
it's not like they had almost 7 years. They got awarded the Olympics in June of 2019. It'll be nearly 7 years from the time they were awarded the Olympics. There wasn't a roof on the building like on Halloween. The hell? Listen, half of me is Italian. Okay. So I can respectfully kind of hit you with the, what? I don't know what they were doing. I know that my people sometimes like to take, little breaks from time to time. I don't know what the hell happened. That's insane.
A little wine break, a little pasta
break. Wine break, a little cheese, little supersonic. You never know. Real quick though, on that. So the Olympic rink that was built for the Torino Olympics is still a thing. Like, it hasn't been torn down. It seats just over 14,000 people. I don't know what the building availability is, but like, if you're in a massive like scramble mode from the Olympic side of things and from the host nation side of things, is that the contingency? Do you see them going that way? I mean,
I asked Frank that. Yeah, I asked him that, and he said he thinks they have this like second arena there that could be a contingency, like rink B. I mean, there's always at every Olympics. I did Pyeongchang. I did all the radio for NBC at Pyeongchang. There were 2 hockey venues. Sort of like an A venue and a B venue. So I don't know. Honestly, I saw someone the other day. I think they said it in our chat or they tweeted me, and they were like, let's just pull it and just put our own tournament. Like, do an 8-team World Cup. I know we're going back to that, but they should just do an international tournament every couple of years in North America. I know that's not growing the game internationally, but right now I don't care. I want to have it in the US and Canada, put it on NHL ice, let it be NHL refs. I mean, what we got at the Four Nations Cup, that left us all drooling. That was so good and entertaining to watch. So if you could just replicate that every couple of years over here, I don't think the Olympics, it's not. My cousin says
have the same draw that it used to.
My cousin was a 2-time Olympic skier and a punt returner for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Jeremy Bloom. So he says it all the time. Who's a diehard, wanted to be an Olympian his whole life. He's like, it doesn't have the juice that it used to have. They've gotten so many events now and so many new sports and so many medals and like everything else. Like, everybody gets a participation trophy. And so give me more Four Nations, Russ. I forget these small rinks in Italy. Give me Four Nations.
I've been joking, but there's part of me that sits back and says, is there somebody in a very cold country to the east of Italy right now saying, you need hockey rinks. You'll let our team play. We have lots of rinks for you to play.
It's a shame we won't have the Russians. I know.
You know what? I know it's a really unpopular take, but none of the guys on that team are involved in the conflict.
They should be playing.
The war. When it's a cheating scandal because you are breaking the actual rules of the competition, But to ban those athletes,
I agree.
I don't
Let them
I
play
don't
under a
think
different flag. Let them play
well, they
under
did. Remember the one Olympics or
Pyeongchang.
whatever they did?
They were
They did
OAR,
what
Olympic
the hell was-
Athletes of
what was the name of
Russia.
it?
They
That
were
was it.
OAR. I was
That was it.
there. I covered those games. They won the
OAR
gold
also
that
does a
year.
nice concert. I don't know if you've ever heard OAR in concert.
I
Good
have.
concert.
I
Good
have.
concert.
Yeah, went back at the Tweeter Center when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I know it's not called that, or the Campbell Soup Center, whatever it
Whatever
was
the hell it's
called then.
Yeah.
But they should be playing. I agree. I mean, think of that team. Think of how many star NHL players we won't get to see. I mean,
Yeah.
I also think World Juniors loses juice without having them there. And again, politically, no, I get it. Like, I do get it. Like, I get it. I really do. It's not okay what's happening. I'm not saying that, but like, let the hockey guys go. Just make them go no flag, right? Let them just wear a black jersey or a white jersey, or
Dude, this is our like last opportunity potentially, like to see like an Ovechkin Crosby matchup in an Olympics.
Yeah.
And now we're not going to get it. I don't know. It just that to me is a bummer. But
I agree.
Anyway.
All right, pal.
Lovely seeing you as always. Go check out
good.
Colby. You can find him on Twitter at Colby Cohen 36 and go check him out every Monday through Thursday for Morning Cup of Hockey. Colby.
Thanks
I'll
for
be
having
talking
me.
to you. All right, catch you later. All right, so we are going to stay here in the general Philadelphia area for the rest of the show, which isn't going to go that much longer because how do you follow that up? How do you go from such a high of having Colby on the show and talking some puck? Well, you can maybe look at the team that happens to share the arena with the Philadelphia Flyers, and you look to last night and you take a goosey gander at what the Sixers were able to do against the Warriors. Now, I'm not going to make an excuse here, okay? The Sixers had quite the epic collapse, right? The Sixers were up significantly after the first quarter, and they eked out a 1-point win over Golden State on Thursday night. And the crazy part, and I would love to show it, but we know that if I show clips of the games on YouTube, YouTube gets very upset and they wag their finger and they flag it, and we don't need that. But there's this beautiful moment. Maxey gets up a shot with a few seconds left on the clock. VJ Edgecombe skies up, gets the rebound, gets a putback, puts the Sixers up 99-98. And that's where things go very haywire and where things go very helter-skelter. Now, I'm going to pull up a screen grab of the clip because that should not get me in trouble with the YouTube, okay? But I need you to understand that as I explain what happened at the very end, I need you to have a visual of where Tyrese Maxey was on this play. So again, puts up a jump shot. You get VJ Edgecombe with the putback. And I want you to see where exactly Tyrese Maxey was on this play. I'm going to pull it up because what I tell you happened next is the thing that absolutely blew my mind in every way possible. All right. Here's the end of the game. And I want you to just take a look, and I'll highlight here on the screen where Tyrese Maxey was after the putback. All right, here we go. So here's Tyrese Maxey. This is the end of the game. So Maxey let go of a shot, and right over here, this is Tyrese Maxey right here, okay? So he's just at where the wing meets the corner on the three-point arc. VJ Edgecombe has just put this away. There is 0.9 seconds left on the clock. Here's Tyrese Maxey. The ball gets inbounded, right? So we are in a second and a half, right? So we're at the 12-second mark of this clip. Ball gets inbounded within a second. Maxey is already on the move. He's here. Maxey is already on the move. Look at the ground he covers. So we are 2 seconds into this clip. He's already at half court. We are 3 seconds in. He is almost at the like underneath the hoop. And if you want to say 3.5, 4 seconds later, he's got his hand on that ball and he rejects what is almost certainly going to be a game-winning layup from the Warriors. Again, 12 seconds into this clip, he's partially out of bounds. I'm going to see if I can get you the body. All right, so here, he's actually behind the player here. This is Maxey out here at the 10-second mark. He then has the presence of mind that, like, the horn didn't sound. So a second and a half later, he pretty much jumps out of the stands and sprints down the court and is able, within 3.5, 4 seconds, to put his hand on that ball. Well, that's actually a brilliant spot to stop it. get his hand on the ball and block the shot. Now, you guys know how high I am on Tyrese Maxey. You know that for a long time I've said he is a bona fide star in the making. And I have said in recent weeks he is a legitimate superstar. And I think that there is a legitimate case to be made that he could end up being an all-NBA player. I am not going to take it to the next hyperbolic step that he could very well be a first-team all-NBA player. But when you see plays like that, those are the kind of iconic moments within a season that, one, get you MVP consideration, and two, certainly go on that sizzle reel as voters are starting to consider who they're going to vote for the all-NBA teams. And I'll also note that all of this happened in a game where Tyrese Maxey dropped another 35-point performance. Shot 13 to 27 from the field, 4 of 10 from downtown. That's 40% for those of you who are math challenged. Perfect at the line, 5 of 5. Had 2 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, and that game-saving block. So Tyrese Maxey's ascension from being a very good player, a very promising player, to a star, to a budding superstar, to being a full-blown star, to being potentially one of the best guards, period, in the entire NBA, and very much putting himself in contention to be an all-NBA player, that is the kind of meteoric rise that anybody should hope for any team. And kind of going back to what Colby and I were talking about on the Flyers side of things, that is what people want to see out of a Matvei Michkov. That's the kind of thing people want to see out of a Porter Martone. You want to see that year-over-year increase, and then eventually there's that big jump where you go from budding star to potential superstar. That is a ton of ground to cover, and if you can do it and you reach that superstardom, well, then you're in business. So again, the Sixers had a very disappointing collapse within this game. So we're not going to make it sound like it was all peachy keen, rainbows and smiles. But when the game was on the line, Maxey had the ball in his hand, doesn't get the jump shot to fall. Edgecombe is there, does what every coach always says, follow the shot. VJ Edgecombe puts it back. Maxey runs the full length of the court in 3.5 seconds and blocks what probably would have ended up being a game-winning layup for the Warriors. He's incredible, guys. Like, absolutely incredible stuff. That is exactly what we need. Like, that is exactly what you should want if you're a Sixers fan. We're not going to talk about the fact that Joel Embiid attempted 6 3-pointers in this game and missed all of them. Went 5 for 13 from the field and only had 12 points. We're not going to talk about that. We also probably will not mention the fact that Paul George. Okay, cool. Yeah. But Maxey was great. Okay. Last thing I wanted to get to before we head out. The last thing. I have seen so many people this week. I mean, Twitter has been a cesspool this week in a way that I'm used to the normal cesspool, but it has just gotten to a toxicity that has made me decide I'm officially leaving. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Twitter this week, when it comes to the Eagles discourse, has gone to an entirely different level. I don't know how we fix it, but I'm starting to feel like Philly sports talk radio and the way that many people consume it through short form content on Twitter has effectively broken the entire ecosystem. Like, I am actually now more convinced than ever that sports Twitter, at least in Philadelphia, is almost irrevocably broken. Like, it's gotten to the point people talking like from a national standpoint about like the political landscape is broken. People can't have conversations. That is now manifesting itself in Philly sports Twitter. Like yesterday, I'm just roaming through Twitter and I see Spike Eskin and Jordy from Barstool going at it. And there have been the clips going around from Hard Knocks and the way that people have reacted to some of the radio hosts talking about Tanner McKee. Should he get a look at quarterback? Or I'm wondering what it would look like. And then you get guys like John Kincaid, who I highlighted the other day, telling the Eagles that the drama is coming from inside the house, that the fans aren't part of it, the media's not part. I think things are just so fundamentally broken. And so I have a little bit of homework. I've just a tiny bit of homework for everybody who tunes into this show. You can tune into whatever you want. But if you're watching this show for the first time, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. if you are a repeat viewer of this show or somebody who listens in the podcast feed, I need you to do me a favor. This is not a shameless attempt to just try to get viewer numbers through the roof, okay? I would appreciate if you would spread the word about the show, because I do think that while this show gets irreverent and sometimes it gets hyperbolic and we get a little bit goofy, we never get to this toxic level of just saying shit that you don't mean just to say shit and get engagement. That's not the point of this show. This show is primarily to hold teams accountable and to hold the media who cover them accountable as well. And so if you have been enjoying this for the better part of the last year and a half, spread the word about the show, because I do think that ultimately it could be a good thing to maybe add this to some people's daily consumption of sports media. Because again, we try to do a pretty fair, balanced look at Philly sports, sometimes national sports. Sometimes we give thoughts on Thanksgiving and what the appropriate side is. And sometimes we talk about things that have nothing to do with sports. But do me a favor, because it is the holiday season. Let somebody know about the show. This is not an attempt to get rich. I hate to break the facade for anybody who ever wants to get into doing stuff like this. There's not a lot of money to be made in hosting a YouTube show or a podcast. Like, you can make a little bit of money, and then you turn around and you pay a video guy to clip things up and try to spread the word about the show. And it's still a lot of fun, and it's a nice creative outlet. Will this show ever get to a point where it pays the bills? I have no clue. I'd say probably not, at least not without your help. So I reach my hand out. I extend my hand out to all of you. And I ask you very nicely, do me a favor, spread the word about the show. You could share a YouTube link. You could share the link to the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. And I do appreciate all of you for being here with me. Hopefully you enjoyed having Colby on the show. I am going to, this is a promise for the new year, I am going to work in trying to get more guests on the show. I don't want to say like a big Rolodex of people, but I do have a lot of people that I could reach out to. But as you know, the schedule of the show is kind of hit or miss. I am not yet willing to be committed to setting a set time 3 days a week for this show, because that will then require me trying to figure out ways to make that work around work. And that, well, friends, as much as I love all of you, I also really do love my job. And so it still gets priority, but maybe we'll be able to figure it out a little bit better in the new year. So anyway, a big thank you to each and every one of you who tuned in today. If you missed the Colby Cohen section of the show, just go back. You can always just go back on YouTube. It is there. You can go all the way back to the beginning of the episode. And if you missed anything else, you could certainly go back to any other part of the episode. And as I mentioned, the show is also available wherever you get your podcasts. So until Monday, this has been the Russ Joy Show. And I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. And it's also the name of the show. I hope each and every one of you has a fantastic Friday, a wonderful weekend. And I'll talk to all of you Monday here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye now.